you talk about fairies in that part of the world compared to how people perceive fairies in Australia and the US, two totally different things and different types of entities.
Big time.
This is where one of the big epiphanies for me in recent times is that there isn't no good and there isn't no bad. It doesn't mean I endorse these dark, Luciferian, reptilian, Illuminati, satanic, list goes on things. But when you truly understand that everything is a cell of one consciousness, that's where you now go into a different phase of this journey. And it's through the higher self and through meditation.
Welcome to the Biba frequency, home to conversations with consciousness. I'm Biba, your host.
Are you ready for a treat? I know all the people I invite onto my podcasts are a treat, but this is a special treat. This is Peter Maxwell. Peter Maxwell Slattery is a interdimensional being of love and light. It's the only way I can describe him. He's written 14 books. He's made 2 documentaries, 2 films. He's a remarkable being in his own right, and he's infused with love and understanding, and he teaches in his sanctuary about self-mastery, and this man cares. He really deeply cares. He has a level of integrity within him that is very rarely found. He's very authentic, and he's very experienced in ET contact and the ascension and this universe that we're living in and sharing, and his perspective on it is extremely enlightening. And I've invited him on to share who he is and his understanding. And if any of you are interested in his story, listen to his films and read his books. We didn't so much go into his story because he spoke about that many, many times. My interest today was, where is he at today in his experience? And he gives so much of himself. And I want to thank you, Peter. And I send you so many blessings here from Ireland. And to all of my viewers, enjoy the show. And please check out his work. And just, it's a transmission of love, and I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Peter Maxwell, welcome on board the mothership.
Thank you for having me on.
I think you're well acquainted with motherships. How you doing over there in Australia? Are you in Australia all the way?
I am. I'm near a town, well, I'm sort of between 2 towns. One's called Rutherglen, the other is Corowa, near the Murray River. And we could almost say halfway between Melbourne and Sydney, but more on the Melbourne side. And I'm blessed with, I think it's 18 or 19 wineries around me, and gold country, so I'm pretty lucky.
So Peter, do you know how I discovered you?
How was that?
I discovered you, it's very interesting how I discovered you. I'm in Ireland, right? So it's the other side of the ball. And I was driving home and I was at the traffic lights, and I was in my car and I was just waiting at the traffic lights. And there was a man, and he had a hoodie on, and he had the hood up, and he was holding a kid's hand. And I was just looking at him, and he morphed into a lion, like his face morphed into a lion being. And then I was looking at him morph, and then his eyes, he just looked with his eyes, he looked at me. And when he looked at me, he was inside of my mind immediately. And I knew he was inside of my mind. So I had to pretend I wasn't freaked out, right? I knew he was in there. So I was like, it's real. Like, lion beings are real. There's a man in Dublin crossing the road with his son, and his head is turned into a lion. And all of the chemistry in my body changed. All of my cells went bing. And Peter, for 3 days, it was like that, right? And I knew he was in my mind, because I know when someone's in my mind. I've kind of figured that out. And what I did was I went home and I didn't do anything. The next day I went onto YouTube, and I just, the first thing that came up was your friend, James Gilland. And he was talking about line beings. I'd never heard of James in my life. I'd never heard of line beings. And he was saying, oh, there's a race of beings called, they're line beings. And he was talking to you. And that's how I discovered you, through the line being in Dublin.
Interesting. I think when you're on this path, the synchronicities that lead you wherever, it's quite the dot connecting experience that unfolds. So I hear different stories all the time of how people found out about me, and I'm aware. How would I put it? I'm aware of so many different ways that this unfolds, like how the human experience plays out, whether it's with the spirit realm or our own synchronicities. But it doesn't surprise me. So you've had that experience, and that's just led you on, we could say, another chapter within the journey. So that's quite interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting because what I needed at that time as well in my life was I needed a level of integrity with the information that was on the internet. I needed a higher truth. I didn't need sensationalism or fear or this is coming because I have quite a good self-inquiry. You were teaching about ascension, coming home to yourself, aligning with your higher self. You were talking about ETs in the sense of your communication and your understanding of your relationship with what you are and what they are, and it was a relationship, and that's where I was at. And when I heard you talk like that, I thought, oh, this guy knows. He's part of a tribe that just is here to deliver a real truth, and that truth will just ignite and spark up those that hear it, you know. And so I have always listened to you and your beautiful meditations and even your clearing, and even with my own clients, they'll say, what do you think I should do? I just send them your channel. I just say, listen, go just listen to Peter Maxwell. Just tune into him. You'll figure it out. And so when I did this podcast, you came into my mind. So I really appreciate you. I appreciate your time because I know you are very busy out there. You have a ranch, right?
Yeah, well, you could say that. It's a little, so yeah, James he's got a lot of animals and things as well as events and experiences and all that going on. Here I've got a policy where I've just let nature be here. So what's here, whether it's the kangaroos or the hares or the birds or the odd snake, I've just let this just be natural. Although I mow the whole acreage, which takes hours. I love doing that on the ride on and looking after the gardens and everything else. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work as well as helping people, writing books or meditations or curriculums and things like that. But that's what I do. So thank you for having me on, and bless you for saying all that. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Do you know what I'm really interested in? I'm interested in where are you now on the journey of putting all the jigsaw pieces together, and really, where are you now with everything? Like, what's going on in your current reality?
It's ever evolving. There was what I could say is a part of acceptance, but also we could say strength that was found in this process that I wasn't even aware of. Now, some would equate that to what I've gone through opening this sanctuary, which I've done all legally, got the government permit, so I've gone above and beyond in every way. I wouldn't say just that. I'd say that's very minimal. There was experiences over a decade ago where I was taken off world that I haven't spoken about until now. And it's actually coming out in a book that I've written as well, which will probably be the last one of my experiences. And it's because I think you need time to sit back and allow the answers to come. And sometimes you will never get answers. But I think in our unbounded aspect, it's already everything we need to know is there. It's whether we can decode it, whether we could, what I say is linearize it in a way that you can use a vocabulary to get those multidimensional experiences and tell it. But I've also found that a lot of it doesn't even matter to talk about. I think when you first have these experiences and every now and then you need to talk about it, you're trying to come to some understanding. I think I'm made a little bit different from most in terms of even with the earlier experiences, I didn't even equate it to ETs or angels or demons. It was just an experience and I didn't know what to do with it. And I just kept going about my life. But there's been a lot of interference, whether it's with what I call beyond government. I even say it's beyond black, with some of the things that happened over a decade ago. And being in the public now for, I think, since 2010, there's a lot of stuff that came with just telling the world what I'm going through that I wasn't prepared at the time what I was going to go through nationally. Well, we could say local and then nationally and then internationally. So where I am now is a completely different place, I'd say, from even last year. But it's taken dedication and discipline. And I think when you know that you're here for something, and even those answers you still don't know a part of, but you're just letting God work through you, that's where I've learned that you've got to surrender and get out of the way. As long as the heart is pulling you, not the mental mind, the mental gymnastics, not what other people are saying, but what the heart's pulling you towards, the revelations and experiences on the other side of that, I don't think you can even think that you can imagine beforehand. So even with the experiences and revelations and the types of beings that I've been interfacing with now for quite some time, whether it's ultra-terrestrials, whether it's extraterrestrials, whether it's multidimensional beings or transdimensional intelligences or angelic intelligences, going up to source and stuff that I don't even have a reference for still, it keeps life quite interesting, to say the least. But I'm not dictated by them. I'm not dictated by my experiences. It's just like talking to you now. Now, depending on the intelligence will depend if I'm like with the Elohim or some of the angelics, even some of what I could deem as extraterrestrials that are at a higher state. There is a byproduct where you naturally just got a wet, soaked face from tears. Not from being upset, but because of just that's a byproduct with the way that the body's reacting when you've got an expanded awareness during these experiences. It's almost like, only recently have I said this, if anyone knows what a Skinar device is, I think it was originally created by the Russians and their cosmonauts were using it. I've got a device here similar to it, a Dinas device. It's a little handheld device that's using, we could say, electricity to bring back a regulation of electricity within the body. Because when we've got a certain ailments or injuries, it's usually the electricity within the body is not at a regulatory way. That's where things can manifest. My point with this is that when you're using one of them, or when I did in recent years, the sensation is very similar to when you're having these experiences. It's an electrical energy that's almost to the point that you can't stand it and your body's about to tense up, but it doesn't. And what that is something's light body overlapping your light body, or when they're physically in your presence, there's still that sensation that occurs as well. And so my point with this is that the revelations from a lot of the experiences in terms of the mechanics, which is where I'm at now, and I didn't realise that I've been doing this for years, the mechanics is what intrigues me to help people help themselves, because that's what I just knew my heart was pulling me towards even over a decade and a half ago nearly, of what this is about is us individually, but also us as a collective. And first to get to that point, beyond using psychics, beyond saying my guides told me this, the ETs told me that, the angels told me that, it was finding your own authority and sovereign stance within yourself first, because when you've got that, now you can align with source and now you can allow that to work through you. And so it's been a journey for years finding the mechanics that, even if it's the mechanics that doesn't work for me, I'm still gleaning that knowledge, whether it's through other teachers, through off-world masters and teachers or what have you. So when I'm working with somebody or a group, I can dish out different techniques to help them help themselves, because it's going to be different for the next man.
So Peter, you were just talking about how you've come to understand at this time that it's not so much about having to talk about experiences, but becoming and finding out who you are in the midst of all of the relationships with the different types of beings and different types of experiences you're having on this earth. So just pick up where you left off. When you got cut off there, the last thing you were saying was that it's about you were finding your own place in this, and that's where you were.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Like, just people say, my guides told me this, my guides told me that. I said that briefly before. I don't care what somebody's guides told them. I don't even care what the beings tell me. It got to a point where I realized that there is a lot of manipulation that's going on. And if it's really your guides, they will pull you up, but they'll also endorse you not taking what they're saying as gospel, because they want you to empower you. That's a big thing that I'm not seeing in a lot of areas here. Atlantis, Lemuria, going back to all these different civilizations, Arcturians, and, the list goes on. I've interfaced with a lot of these different beings, but it doesn't mean jack. What means something is when I transition from this world with this pinpoint of awareness absorbing back to my highest expression, is what I learnt and what I did with my time here. People have gone from that and are connected to that and come here to assist here. Not, in some cases, be in an imaginary state wanting to go back there. Like, you'll go back there. What I'm saying is that you were here for something. If you were meant to be there, you'd be there. Just like when I've gone off world. When I've gone off world, I was meant to go off world where I've gone, and this is physically as well as non-physically. So it came to me was that I'm seeing a lot of people give their power away, and it was like, if it's really your guides, they're going to help you empower you. And there's going to be fruit to the information. As I say, you would have heard me say this 100 times. If the information is about you becoming a better person, being of service and bringing love into your life, that's good information. If it's not, check it. And if it's guilt tripping you, get away from it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to get pulled up. So what I found in all this was empowering myself. That's what I found. Not just in a spiritual sense, but in a spiritual sense of even me being here, having the human experience. Doesn't mean you've got to fight somebody or cause a ruckus. We could say, comply with what you want to do, so long as it's not affecting anyone or you're coming from the heart in the choices that you're making. And that's what this led me down the path of self-mastery. That's what happened. And I had the epiphany long ago that I don't think a lot of people are ready for what I've experienced. I don't think that it's not that they're not worthy, but I was lucky that I was a paranormal investigator before all this got to the extent that it has, because I could deal with negative influences. I could deal with certain types of things that even back then I was saying there's a crossover of the paranormal and we could say UFOs. That they can land a craft on you like an apparition and vibrate your consciousness on board, or even you physically on board, or when they're overlapping you, they can merge with the mind's eye. Now you can interface with them in the mind's eye. People were saying that I was nuts. And you talk to Native Americans and Native original people here in Australia, and they're like, yeah, we already know all this. But the point with this I get to is that through self-mastery, you'll realize that the contact comes with it. And then you'll have the epiphany that I've been having contact all along, whether it's through thoughts, ideas, epiphanies, concepts, and what have you. And so, and it's not putting down people that are channeling or connecting with, Atlantis, Lemuria, Egypt, the Venetians, the Pleiadians, this, that, the list goes on and on. I'm just seeing a lot of power given away. And if the beings are really enlightened, that shouldn't be in the curriculum. And that's what dark entities do, is when you don't do what they say, they'll cause some crap in your life. if they love you unconditionally, they will let you do what you're going to do out of free will, and they will assist and guide where they can. But like anything, they're not going to fix anything or bring anything to you. You've got to learn about your own masteryship through your experience, and that's where you create, that's where you manifest, that's where you take, we could say, life by the balls and make something of it. You know what I mean? So this is sort of like, I've been at this stage for a long time now, but I think that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here with the sanctuary. Is this like, you want a level playing field with these beings, great. But now it's just expanding yourself. You're expanding your consciousness. And I think with most experiences, if not all, in my opinion, I've worked with thousands now. There's this full circle. The full circle is, in some cases, I was abducted, poor me, what's going on? Then all of a sudden it leads to consciousness, boom. Oh, it's about source. Then they're on chapter 2 and it's elevating them. You know, some, they've got positive experiences, everything positive. Oh, you see a reptilian have a dark experience, oh, everything's not positive. What happens? Full circle, they've got what they need in the human experience, and then they elevate and go to that next level. It's very individual, but in my experience, most of the time it will lead to self-empowerment, and through passion and purpose, how you can contribute to the collective and also evolve yourself through trials and tribulations and strength and faith. And so my thing has just been to find as much mechanics as I can and tools, because everyone works slightly different, and be able to share that with people so they can empower themselves multidimensionally and share their light with the world. But it's, you know, that's ongoing in a process of itself. And it's not to be judgmental here, because non-judgment and compassion is huge in this, but I've got the compassion. But there's times that things need to be said, because if nobody's not going to say it, well, we could say that that's irresponsible for me not to say something when I can see something. So there's a catch-22 with all this.
You know, Peter, you've got such a magnificent energy. It's like basking in a cloud. Your energy's like, I get to bask, as in like, I just get to, it's really very tangible and very beautiful. It's just like basking in a cloud is the only way I could describe your energy. It permits everything else to just drop, surrender, listen, take it in, because what you're saying is multidimensional. There's many layers of information coming through you and from you. And I know that what you're saying is the highest truth that there is at this time available to us, that I have come across, because I have my own understanding of exactly what you're talking about from my perspective. That this is, for me, where I'm at is the highest truth is that you being empowered 100%. There's no levels of you're here and there. It's just you knowing who you are, and everything in your life, and that presents itself to you, and everything you present yourself to, it should only really be to reflect back to you the divine. And all of the channeling, trance, I've studied it all. I was started off in the church worshiping, give it all away, and then lose your power, and the guides. And like you, I have nothing against any of that. But man, stop. Just stop. For once in a while, just you be the main receptor, receiver, channel of communication that this life wants to talk through. Not galactics or angels. Just for a moment, allow yourself to love yourself enough to hear what your soul has to say, what your eternal essence has to say, right? That's what you're saying. It's so, and Jesus, Peter, it's so powerful.
The same consciousness. There we go. Something just fell off the wall. That was interesting. The same consciousness that you have, that I have, that an angel has, that an extraterrestrial has, that a fairy has, list goes on, is all a cell of the same consciousness. It's the same consciousness. And a lot of us have had what I actually say are having experiences in other star systems, in other galaxies, places that we don't even know of yet. We could say even on a 3D level, up to different dimensions, different densities. And I think if people can fathom that they're not just connected to this star being race, that they're not just connected to this or that, and start to be childlike with it, the aha moments and the revelations and all that stuff starts to subside to where there's a point that you just get it. But when you get it, it's like, well, how do I just do what I've got to do now? And if you're in that stillness, in that silence, and again, following the heart, it will pull you. It will pull you to what you've got to do. But this is part of Source's soul evolutionary state, that you lose yourself to find yourself, and there is these, you could almost call it like quests in a game, that some are set up, some aren't, because of others' free will, imposing on your free will and your plan or situation. And of course, we could say soul contracts, but you can break a soul contract any moment. Just because, you've decided something doesn't mean you've got to do it in some cases. There might be things that you've got to kick your own butt and push yourself through to experience in the earth human experience. But when you get to that moment before transition, it's going to be, I could have loved more. I could have received more love. And they're the main things that come up for most people at that stage. And that's where I think we'll talk about this actually before we started recording, that love is what creates these vessels to come into physical manifestation in most cases. There are the exceptions, of course, unfortunately. But we were created by Source from its love. And when we go back to it, we're going back to that love again. So the identification process in all this, it can help in the beginning phases. But if you allow it to pull you again through your heart to where you need to go, there'll get a stage where you realize you've got to dissolve that identification process of I've been this, I've been that, I'm this now. It's doing this, I want to be enlightened, but hey, I'm this, I'm that, and you're still identifying as certain things. And it's like, it comes back to what the hippies were saying, and they're pretty much right, it's all an illusion. But there is, the flip side of that again. Yes, like one thing that comes to mind with this is James has talked about this, James Gilliland, my friend and mentor and big brother, and somebody will come up to him and go, I'm Jesus. And he's like, we'll go and walk on the lake there. Or they'll go, I'm in the fifth dimension. And he's like, we'll go and run up that tree and tell me if it hurts. So
I love it.
There's this sense of humor in all of us. But again, when we see those things, they're a reflection of us as well, like you're saying. It's very convoluted what's going on, but I guess what I am saying here is to look at the fruit of the information, look at the fruit of your actions, look at the fruit of your thoughts, and are they nourishing? Or are they just momentarily filling you up and not giving you anything? Are they just a split-second satisfaction? And, this can be done with sex, this can be done with drugs, this can be done with, so many different things. For some it's shopping, for some it's
eating,
certain hobbies and things like that. But I think, with my experiences with where I'm at now, and now I'm identifying, I've just learned to let go and just let it lead me where it's going to lead me. And so long as you stay in truth, and again, look at the fruit, it's just going to pull you to the next thing. And it's just, it's like a river.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to be in control of your ship. But you also want to work with the universe and meet it halfway. So there is this sort of symbiotic relationship because we're actually experiencing ourselves. And that's one thing in later years that I learned, like in a series of experiences and epiphanies and revelations, is that we're not really going anywhere. Even if we look at the Merkaba, once you start tapping into that, which is, we could say it's two opposing tetrahedrons, it comes from Jewish mysticism, but there's actually different layers and templates. And we could say to the light body aspect, it's referred to as a chariot in the Bible. So it's not just, some type of chariot being pulled by a horse. It's actually a light vehicle, your light body. And the revelation is that you're actually experiencing yourself on a treadmill and you're not going anywhere. It's the illusion that you're going places. And you're really just experiencing yourself.
I love that analogy. You're on a treadmill. You're going, so all these locations that some of us go to in different ways, and the Merkaba was a big one there a few years ago, wasn't it? It was this whole get in touch with your inner Merkaba so you can bilocate and you can traverse the universe. And
well, I was experiencing it I think it was about 11 years ago. I didn't even know what the hell it was until I was watching a movie one day. What? It's a Merkaba, and I went on this mission with it because Shiji and the Elohim and others, they weren't helping me. They weren't meant to. It was like, you're gonna figure this out. That's what I mean. Like, you're gonna figure this out. You've got to figure it out. That's like myself. I had to figure it out. And a little bit after that, I was taken off world by the Elohim one day, where I was in my office and they come in, and I will say there's variations of the Elohim. And I believe we're actually all Elohim, our highest expression. But there are different colors which represent the different Elohim that regulate the domain of their frequency, meaning different colors of the chakras. So they'll come in different colors of the chakras all combined. There's ones that appear like they're on fire. There's ones that are purely just creation beings, and they oversee what I call the light blue, the light template, the blueprint to each physical reality. It is very late, and also the negative entities, the most advanced dark masters, they're the fallen Elohim. But I was approached one day by one when it came into my office, just as a blue orb about baseball size, and it turned into a column of light. And then it was sort of like informing me something's about to go down, you up for it? And then all of a sudden it engulfed me. It like went into an orb and engulfed me. And I was taken to 3 different locations off world. So when I came across the Merkaba, it didn't seem so far out there, because what this intelligence could do made even the Merkaba look like child's play.
like a star, like a Doctor Who telephone box.
Yeah, well, the thing is, there's nothingness, and then your ears are popping, you're adjusting to another environment, and you're sort of in awe momentarily, like, what is going on? And the Merkaba is something that if somebody is mastered enough, they can physically manifest this around them. Break down to rainbow light, which some of the material I'm working on now, I actually did a presentation in Malibu in October last year to a group going into this, that the Merkaba and the rainbow body are different stages of the same thing. So you can go from a physical form, tap into the light body, where you start to see a geometric form, which is the Merkaba. Now, when it's spinning that quick, you can see it as an orb, where you can see the different templates. Within the sphere, there's all geometry can fit within that. It's just depending on your frequency. But when you go from that, you break down to rainbow light, and then you merge with source, and you navigate through thought where you want to pop out, and you just pop out, and then you'll be rainbow light back into the Merkaba, back physical again. But this is where I also had the revelation. I saw David Wilcock some time ago show something about a Polish university took apparently the first, don't quote me, I hope I've got this right, it was a Polish university taking the first photo of a photon. And it looks like the Knights Templar cross, but when you look at it three-dimensionally, it actually is a Merkaba.
Mm.
Now, we've got photons throughout everything, and what I theorise and have been saying, and I've got some information on, which led me to the revelation of the treadmill thing, is that everything is just an infinite amount of photons on one level, on one frequency, which would be Merkaba shaped. But if you change that frequency, going back to an experience you might have heard me talk about where I saw everything made up of purple hue dodecahedrons, it's the same thing, but it's just a different frequency. So depending on the frequency that you're operating on, depends on what comes online, because that's what you're vibing with.
Mm.
But because all of that's, makes up everything, it's actually one made up of it all. Are we on a treadmill just experiencing ourselves? This is stuff I sit in with. I haven't watched television unless I'm in an airport or something for years. I can sit, I can just have the laptop closed at night and just be sitting here in the middle of nowhere thinking about this, and yeah, there'll be some bangs pop in and out, this and that, but this is, working out how the mind works. Because I think through us, God is figuring itself out as well.
Exactly. It's just such a beautiful thing to try and talk about, and to hear different people's way of articulating it, because it's kind of indescribable, but you can kind of describe it as best as you can, right? At the same time, I love the mind-bending aspect of it all. I love that I'm not just a body and I'm going to be reincarnated back on earth to clean up my karma. I love that there's so much more than that. I love that I'm more than the expression of what I am now, and that we are going to overcome everything that we picked up along the way, and we really can let it all go now, all of it. All of the trauma, all of the fear. When I'm listening to you, I'm aware that there are people who they're stuck in trauma being I'm not good enough, and I never was allowed to speak as a kid, and I got hit and I got this. So they lost their power somewhere along the way, or they disconnected with their own inner power. So mastering yourself is a skill for somebody who's got enough courage to go, well, I know that's true, instead of always self-doubt is the biggest obstacle to self-mastery, isn't it?
And then you don't want to step into ego when you can step into your power.
Mm-hmm.
Very fine balance. And I think it is all about the individual. Like, I've met some people that have never met their father or mother. I'm just using an example here. And they don't know no different. But to somebody else that has their parents, it would tug at the heartstrings a bit. And if they lost their parent, it would be very traumatic for them. So it's different for each individual, the circumstances. And I think if you can have your stuff at moment, your positive pissed off moment, and use that as fuel, that's where we evolve. Too much, we go into victim mentality. And of course, we're going to have our good days, our bad days, our depression, our poor me moments and what have you, or no matter what I do, it doesn't work. We have all these different things that can happen to us, but no one's going to save you.
No one.
You might have somebody that might financially fix up your bills, or you don't have a car on your license and you're in an area that you really need it, and somebody might drive you around for so long, but there's going to come a time you've got to do something. You've got to make some choices. And only you can do that to get yourself up and going and move on. So it really is one of those things that you've got to use what you're perceiving as negative. And of course, you know, it doesn't take away trauma, like, you know, whether it's rape or abuse or child trafficking and all these different things. I'm not saying any of that's okay. But there comes a time that you've got to use your experiences to make things better. And that's what I call getting pissed off in a positive way.
You're like rocket fuel.
Not letting, you know, the universe, this, that, whatever you want to term it, you know, keep you down. But this is where people need to find the mechanics of how they can move through those situations, because the mechanics in counseling or psychology or healing work or whatever that works for one person might actually screw up another person and make things worse.
Exactly.
That's why, even for me, I was actually doing counseling and psychology certificates that I didn't even know why I was doing it over 20 years ago. And then I went through, you know, different types of yoga and become a teacher in different yogas and meditation and remote viewing and NLP and hypnotherapy, and the list goes on. Doesn't mean jack. There's some people that I've met that have never been trained in certain things and they're a master at what they can do. But there's specific people they can help. Not one person can help every single person that they come across. And sometimes this has got to do not with the person that's, we want to say healers. I don't think anyone heals. I think they hold space and allow for what happened to happen. Like Yeshua, Jesus said, they'll heal because of their faith. But there's also a process in this that it's got to be congruent with the person. And because each person operates completely different, there's certain people that can hold that space for them better than what others can. But ultimately, you have to end up holding your own space and connecting to the divine, to the source, whatever you want to call it, within. And that's where everyone's got to have their own aha moment. The flip side is most people won't have their aha moment, and they're not meant to have their aha moment this time round. Just like ascension, there's, you know, as I say, there's the Merkaba, there's a rainbow body, there's going to a new earth, there's going to high densities of consciousness. But a lot of us here at this time have already done all that, and we've come here to help those that haven't, hold space to break. We could say a cancer cell in God's mind for it to evolve and elevate, that source has put on itself, that through these tests it finds its strength in another way that it didn't know, because it's got to go out within itself to experience. And so the trauma can be a very productive thing in terms of finding strength and faith and what have you that you didn't realize you're capable of. But some people get caught in their own patterns, whether it's the poor me things, or they get to a certain point and there's about to be a breakthrough and it's just too hard and give in, and they go back to a life that they just can be complacent with because of whatever, whether it is an unhappy marriage or a job they're not happy with. You know, these are probably the most common cases. But it's all just experience. It's just an experience. And it's what we make of it. That's the bottom line.
It's an experience. It's not it. It's not the be all and end all, the beginning or the end. It's just part of your experience. And where I'm going with that statement about trauma, and because I work with people with trauma, and I know that when they clean up their timeline, let's just say it like that they're more free to roam in another perspective of who they are. And here it is. When with the self-mastery and what you're teaching and what you're helping people remember, there's no fear anymore. Fear dissolved, right? There's nothing to be afraid of. It's like you conquer the illusion of fear. To me, that's fear of death, fear of negative people, negative ETs, negative comments, fear of whatever you've conjured up as your perception of fear. It's just isn't there. It's just not there. Do you have any fear, Peter? I doubt you have any fear.
What I will say is I still have that little bit, and I think it's unhealthy. Yeah, and I think it's unhealthy if you don't. And what I'd say, it's usually a reactionary thing that's momentarily.
Okay.
You've got to remember, I'm not your average person. And again, it's not to big note myself or anything like that. What I mean by that is when you're held by the neck by an entity and picked up, which happened recently to me, and it does on a regular basis. I've had people with me that people think you get to this level, and it's not, again, saying I'm a master or anything like this. James has the same thing. People behind the scenes, I can tell you now, when you get to a certain stage, when the darkness comes, it comes. And it comes not just with one, but it happens once in a blue moon compared to what, you want to talk about psychic attacks. You want to talk about, to me, the lower things that are very hard for most people to deal with. This is why I say that it's very irresponsible if people aren't aware of these things, because people start opening up to making contact. People start opening up to ghost hunting. And I know some of the professional ghost hunters, again, I was doing it years ago, but some of the well-known ones. And what a lot of people don't understand is that the clearings they're doing before and after investigations. And I will say, I'll be the first to say, clearings are a band-aid. Because if you're not going to master the mind, and you just keep clearing, thinking clearings are going to fix the situation, you're not fixing the mechanics of it, which is the mental mind, not the spirit, not the soul. It's the physical aspect and the wiring of the brain, and it's because of the R part of the brain and our reaction to certain things. So what happens is I can have things that people could not even dream up that will manifest and try to attack me or my loved ones. And this can be physical.
Okay.
And there is a state that you go into momentarily that, I'll give you an example. I'll just give you one example. So the same old sleep paralysis situation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people will go, it's this, it's that, the other. And there is what we could say sleep paralysis, but then there are people that are having multidimensional experiences, and there's also physical experiences. And let me give you a couple examples here.
Right.
So when you come back into your body, there can sometimes be a click pop moment where you're merging back, you're frozen, your eyes are open, and you're not realizing you just got back in the body. Another thing is that you had a nightmare, wake up, you're paralyzed, and you try fighting it, it gets worse, and you feel a dark energy, and then it dissolves and you can move again. That's an attack.
Okay.
And one thing I found over a long time ago was when you got love and compassion in that state, let's say it's an entity doing that, it will start to go like that from love. Can't hold the frequency. But the thing is, if you're caught in fear, that's what's going to keep going on. Then there's another aspect of this, that if you're not ready to see your crew, your spirit team, which includes ETs, angels, what have you, people think they're ready for it. I've seen people flip, thinking that they were ready for it. They weren't ready for it. What happens in some cases is if they wake up in this case and they're paralyzed momentarily, it can be your team going, we've just got to keep them here frozen until we get out, because they can't turn and see us. They could possibly end up in a mental ward.
Yeah.
This is an example. So it's like, I'll give you an example, even before public speaking and when I used to perform doing music and other things, there's always a little bit of fear or anxiety there. And I think it's healthy. And some well-known people around the world, I could say some names, but it's not about the names, but these are people that are dealing with huge crowds. And I've spoken to them about this. And a lot of the time I get the revelation of when you lose that, meaning fear or anxiety, that little taste of it, that's when you go on that stage and that's when you screw up.
I would agree.
So we source, it's dark, it's light, it's positive, it's negative, it's happy, it's sad, It's victory, it's suffering. What we need to find is the equilibrium and the balance of all that, because we endure and experience it all. This I've said recently in a couple of other podcasts, like no matter what relationship you've got, whether it's you as a parent, you as a child, you as a partner, every single relationship you've ever had and will have is going to end at some point. Now it doesn't when we reunite in what I call the rainbow realms. We see each other again. We laugh, we look at that and go, whoa, what a mind trip that was. But when you're in the human experience, the suffering that some people go through and the trauma, they can get caught up in that and get stuck in it. That no matter what you say or what you do or what you can offer to help and assist, they just see, as a term, they see red. That's all they can see. They can't see, like you were saying before, everything's going to end, everything changes. Or the old saying, the wheel keeps turning. And that's why I think everyone's got their own way that they deal with things. But I think if we had a society where from a young age we're educated on self-mastery, even the simplistic of how can you be the best version of you today, if we could put it to a child like that, of being childlike within ourselves as we become adults, a lot of the problems and things that we experience probably we wouldn't experience in the way and the depth that we do, because we're not educated on this. And when you start waking up, when you start looking into all this, it's a different matter. But if you were brought into a situation like that to where it's part of your mandate on your education, that would be different.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Based on your experience and your expertise, my understanding is this, right, Peter, that through my own paranormal experiences and being held down and beds moving and all that stuff, growing up with all that stuff, there was such a level of terror, right, that it created within me a lot of fears. And I had them for a very long time. And then over my own experiences of getting to know my own power, which was what's going on inside my mind is a reflection of what's happening here in my bedroom. The level of fear.
That's it.
Yeah. And I became aware of that, Peter, right? And then I became aware that the more afraid I was, the more this thing is acting up, right?
That's the aha moment. That's what I'm talking about. These are the aha.
It's a big aha moment for me, because I thought I need to just change something. So I got into yoga, got into all of that stuff. And then fast forward years later, I'm now with meditation. Meditation's so good. It's just so bloody good to just have stillness with yourself, because our interpretations of words are different for each individual. My understanding of fear is this: I'm never going to die, and I was never born. So nothing can take my life. So I don't have a fear of that. When my star family show up at the end of my bed, I will probably shit myself, okay? However, I'm ready on the inside, but the human's like, whoa, you're looking strange.
Yeah. And look, that's an important point you're saying, because there is a difference in terminology. As an example, I know this from the paranormal days again. You talk about fairies in that part of the world compared to how people perceive fairies in Australia and the US. Two totally different things and different types of entities.
Big time.
So, yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying, but this is where one of the big epiphanies for me in recent times, not like super recent, but quite some time ago, is that there isn't no good and there isn't no bad. It doesn't mean I endorse these dark, Luciferian, reptilian, Illuminati, satanic, list goes on things.
Yeah.
But when you truly understand that everything is a cell of one consciousness, that's where you now go into a different phase of this journey. And it's through the higher self and through meditation that is important. But moving here, I had this gentleman appear here. He's actually a physical human. And he's done years of meditation working with a certain master. He actually came here to see if I was the real deal, which is just funny when I come across all that. This gentleman's seen his own crafts now and stuff. He's a good man. And he was saying that he's just having there was a period there he was having a bit of trouble with meditating. And I said, well, you're not meant to. Why I said that was because meditation is something that should be a daily thing. But if you understand meditation, and I'm not saying don't sit down and if it's lotus position or if it's sitting in a chair or in whatever it is, yeah, do those things. But the point of meditation is to be meditative when you're washing your dishes, when you're talking to somebody, when you're driving the car. Now, not to the point that you're going to crash the car, but in all that you do, to be in that meditative state. That's the point of it. Otherwise, you can sit there and you can do, 12 hours a day, every day. If you're not getting the revelation of it's about carrying that meditative state in everything that I do, that's where people get stuck. But through that meditation is the key that unlocks the journey within that actually takes you to all that is. But again, it's allowing this to go to the side. Like I said, with the clearings, you can do as many clearings, but if you're not mastering this, which meditation is great for, to know, you shut up and quiet down. I'm unbounded consciousness. You're just a vehicle that I'm experiencing this reality through. Shut up and control this. That's where mastery goes to a new level in the physical experience. Because people are letting this. But how do you control this? The heart. The heart has its own neuron network as well. And a lot of people are operating in this. And that's where the fear controls in the different way that I interpret it in cultural language. So my point with this is that you're 100% correct in terms of love. But the key with that is the heart, because when you're working with the heart includes the brain. The brain kicks the heart down. When you're operating from the heart, it's also the central point for the light body. Now you're tapped in to the non-physical aspect as well as the physical. And what's happening now is you're opening up to more perspective, to more avenues, to more problem resolution and what have you. Now, it's the next chapter again. Now you've just upped one. But the mastery of the human mind is, we're not educated on it. If the stuff we're talking about, people were educated from a young age, this would be a child's play conversation for them when they get older. And unfortunately, that's not the way it is. But that's sort of my hope one day that, but I think kids know a lot. I think the kids know so much because they're tapped in at that young age. And it's, something that they get distance from through the identification and externalism.
Yeah, well, they're coming in just more they're coming in with less amnesia, right? They're coming in remembering that they are more than just a schoolgirl that has to have A's in order to be somebody. That there's something that they're more aware of. Like, my daughter couldn't go to school. She just couldn't go. And I didn't understand it, Peter. I had no awareness of awakenings or 18 years ago. I just knew that my kid, she says, I just can't go into that building. It makes me, she would throw up every time she approached the building. And Jesus, man, we changed schools, same thing. She goes, I hate sitting on a chair and being told what to do with stuff that just doesn't make any sense to me. And they're teaching us to live in a new way, to trust intuition and to trust in the moment, whatever needs to be, to honor that, not my preconceived idea of what this all needs to be and how to control it and make it out, just to make room, to allow it to just express itself. And trust that if you mess it up, you mess it up. So what?
It's not the end.
No, Steph, there's no such thing. Can I ask you a question? Because when you said that you had an entity that showed up, manifested, and threatened you, how did you? Where was your mind? How did you overcome that? The power of your. How did you deal with that?
The first time it happened, what it was my brother had just left. Now, this is over a decade ago. My brother had just left my apartment. He actually bought a house at the time down the road. It was sort of around, it was like a couple of minutes away. It was sort of like down one road and then down another. And I got into bed, pulled up the doona, and at that time, because of what was going on, like a lot of people need to understand, a lot of what I've experienced isn't, in your head, mind's eye, like, which I consider as real as what I'm saying is me physically here. But a lot of it's been physical. It's not just, this is where it's a different ballpark for a lot of people. So I was sleeping at that time with the blinds slightly open, where there was a street light quite far away. But if there was something in the room, I could just, I could see it. Because there was a lot of crazy stuff happening at this time. And what I saw was a being that was physical, that its head was at my head height on the bed. So it wasn't tall. It had an eye like that, an almond eye with a slit in it. And it was a reptilian grey. Now, I've dealt with the darkest of the dark for many years. And the first person I ever met was James, that had actually, when I started describing it, he finished it off, what I was describing. And he goes, those are dark little buggers. The only way I can describe it, well, that's my term. Like, he was saying they were dark for something else, but the way I can describe it is when something like this is in your presence, it's literally like your heart's being ripped into your stomach, like you're going down a roller coaster. I don't know if, because at that time I was going to asylums, I was going to jails, paranormal investigating, to where people would go, oh, I've got a problem with shadow men in here, and I'll go into the infirmary and just sit there, but go, I could deal with that. No issue. So I think that and house clearing and helping people for years, that was boot camp. I didn't realize, just like, years before I did psychology and counseling, why am I doing this? What am I going to do with it? It actually helped me understand the mechanics of what we are.
Beautiful. So
when this experience happened, I can't tell you why, but within a few seconds of that experience, I felt love and sorry for this being. It was almost like, you have to exist in this state? That sucks. You poor thing. And what happened was, it freaked out how I freaked out energetically, and it turned into smoke and dissolved. That was the first time. So there was a period over the last few years where there had been extra dark stuff, and some of it is covert groups, agencies, some of it is spiritual groups, some of it is actual entities, but there are humans that are making some of this stuff come at me as well. So I've had a lot of training to be able to observe when, something's here. Because like I've been saying for years, the same way that Bigfoot, ghost, fairy, alien, angel, demonic entity, what have you, interface is all the same. Thought transfer, visions, sensation, all the clair senses as well as the physical senses. It just depends on how you're operating with your own mechanics in terms of what you're best at. You use that as your spiritual tool in terms of how you interface. But what got me was, every time it's something dark, if I go straight into observation and just a place of no mind and then love, like non-reactionary mind and then love, As soon as I sit in that love space, they can't get me. And I use this as an experiment. I got to a point, I even had cameras in my room. I had people see this, and they've experienced this. And they've also, so I'm not saying this is all dark. Anyone that knows my story knows the positive stuff, and they've seen the positive stuff as well. It's very rare that this happens, but what happens is, even with the security system here, the cameras will shut off, disconnect, and I'll go and check the mainframe monitor where all the cameras are connected. And it's not every camera, it's just the cameras where I am when those experiences take place. So I did that to go, all right, there's a few ways this can go. The experiences will stop with them. 2, I'll capture the activity. Or I thought, and I didn't want it, they're going to turn the cameras off. That's what they'll do. So I was trying physical things and also non-physical things in terms of how do I deal with these entities.
Yeah.
And over a period of nights, every time I hit back into that love frequency, it stopped it within a second or within seconds. You might hear a frog. I've got frogs that come inside and I can't help it. They're cool.
That's so nice.
Yeah, it's the love frequency. But this is the thing. People get into the, oh, look at me film it, this, that, and the other. And yeah, I film a lot of stuff, like paranormal footage and experiences, but people don't understand the training that I've had to go into, which is another bit of this. That when the experience takes place, I wouldn't even get 1% of what I experience on film, but people now understand when they hang out with me, they've got their camera with me, I'm waiting for an experience to happen with Pete. It happens, the last thing they thought about was filming the experience. My point with this was I had to train myself to react in that way. Grab the camera, boom, film it. And what people don't realise is in a lot of cases, if I'm very quiet, I'm interfacing, I can sometimes be on board the craft in my mind or merging with that consciousness and having telepathic communication. But my point with this is, it was the same training with negative entities, was to, oh, they've come in, observe a state, now love, and it was repeating that. An experience is happening, observe, love. And every time I could repeat that, that would go.
Wow.
So that showed me the power of love. It's something that has to be in every atom of your being when you feel it. You can't just, oh, love. No, you've got to feel that. And it's hard to explain because it's almost like, because it's the polar opposite of what I'm tapping into, it's actually fuel for me. Now I'm using it like a drug and absorbing its energy and transmuting, and I'm using that as fuel to go into the love frequency. But you have to know you're doing it. This is the thing, like I've talked about this on the new book coming out. I've created a entity here that I got a friend of mine, a good remote viewer. People will know who I'm talking about. And I sent him a photo that I took of this entity and he goes, you created that? I knew I created it.
Wow.
Now, the things I've got a problem with, the levitation and telekinesis, anybody that's been watching me lately with certain things, they know that I've levitated a couple of times and also done telekinesis. I can seem to do okay with a lot of things. I've done those things, but I can't repeat it. I know people who can. My point with this is not look at me. My point is how powerful humans are. That intrigues me, going, we are so capable of things that seem like magic. But to me, the block that even I've got to work on is when you're focusing on a specific task, let's say spinning a foil in a fishbowl that you can't touch it and you're trying to get it to spin and move, and you're doing that through thought. You do it a few times and what's happening now is the ego is kicking in and it's just watching that foil, and you're opening your eyes every few seconds going, is it moving yet? What you're doing again is this. So what I'm doing is I'm working on self-mastery to kick the ego out of the side. The reason why I'm doing this is to see how repeatable it is, because I know it's repeatable. I know people who repeat it. But the self-mastery is to know I'm doing it, not thinking that I'm doing it. That's how the spoon bending and other things are done. That's the type of stuff I'm working on a regular basis, because that's the level of self-mastery that I'm up to with that. Again, it's not to gloat, but it's pissing me off because it's something I can't repeat when I want to repeat. So what I've got to do is work in my self-mastery. And look, I might not. That's not the point. The point is I'm intrigued with it because it's another thing humans can do. And it's something that when I can't do certain things, I don't let that go, well, that's a no. I go, well, I'm going to try until I can't try anymore. Then I'll go on. But just because I can't do anything a few times or whatever, am I going to pack in, and go on to something else? That's part of self-mastery as well, is using experiences like that to not dictate what you can and can't do. Sometimes, we might just naturally not be gifted at something or good at something. But you've got to give things a go. But I'm all about the mechanics.
Yeah, and that's why you're a good teacher too, because you're all about the mechanics, you see.
Well, that's the thing, like out of everything, I've got agencies, governments, like there's a lot going on behind the scene and I'm not working with anyone, I can tell you that. But I've got them coming to me. And what it shows me is that no matter who and what you are, and I know about space programs and different things, no matter who you are, they haven't got this worked out yet. Only God has, because God created it. From the mind, from the light blueprint, it came into physical existence in the mind of God. So what that shows me is that even the agencies and the governments and what have you, they haven't got it worked out yet. Because this is the most advanced mechanical specimen on the planet. And in my opinion, in the universe, because we have got trans-dimensional capabilities from going to a physical to non-physical state back to physical in a way that even, as it's been described to me, that even angelics haven't got this capability. So that's what intrigues me. That we're a mixture of them with us, but also a melting pot of so many different things. And as it's been put to me, we don't even know what we're capable of. And they, whether they're extraterrestrials or angelic, they've told me in different conversations, whether it's Shiji or who have you, that they're not even sure. They just know we've got these capabilities because they didn't know what would happen, not only when you mix multiple races together, but when you infuse the angelics with it as well. And then everyone's highest expression is an Elohim already. And that's truth to me. And that's why I know what I'm interfacing with, because of the fruit. And sometimes, as they've explained, sometimes they just don't know. They don't have an answer to everything for me. When something's got an answer to everything, that's when something is not right.
That's a great indicator, isn't it?
Yeah, and that took me aback, because there were certain things I was asking them when I, like, for example, referring to the dodecahedron experience where I saw everything made up of them, and then I saw other universes which were their own gods with their own planes in existence. I was like, well, where did all that come from? And they're like, we don't know. Like, where's the original one? They don't know.
It's even better, isn't it, that they don't know? Isn't that even more better, more beautiful?
Yeah.
No, it's like...
But that's what I see. You exactly have got it. When people take what I'm saying and they're looking at negative stuff, it lets me know where they're at. When they say what you just said, this is what I love about what I do. You just said it shows you, like, basically how big and beautiful everything is. So that's what it's always done to me. It's shown me how big and beautiful this universe is. The wonder, the wow, the never a dull moment. That's my takeaway from all this on a constant, regular basis. If you can get, that's where you're going to grow. That's where you're going to have, amazing things happen on a regular basis, because that wonderment keeps you childlike.
You know, you spoke there for a moment. There's two things you spoke about, and one of them is it's not how do I, it's knowing it is so. Knowing. So the knowing, so you be it. So for example, let's say an analogy is the new earth. So I think, well, how can I get to the new earth? See, that's just a thought. It's not, a thought will never get you anywhere. You just gotta be it, know it, become it, embody it. It's like I've not levitated, but I can imagine that if you've done it once, you've got the map already for that now. You've done it. So it's knowing it. It just is. It's like you've got to just pause your mind, right? You got to just
Well,
pause it.
that's how a lot of these people, and Shiji and others have said, it's like, it's exactly what you're saying. It's even beyond knowing I'm doing it. I am doing it. It's done. It's more that it's done already. That's the weird part of this. And it's a conviction, like what I'll say to the viewers or the listeners is think about things in your life when you've been that pissed off that there's had to be a change and you made that change no matter what and it manifested. That is the attitude you need for creation. And what happens is people create in that state. Now, we know that from studies and what have you, people are highly sensitive or their ESP abilities are turned on in times when there's a fearful situation or a life-threatening situation going on. It's just extremely high. Why can't it be like that when we're in a loving state? I actually think it is. But training ourselves to be in that state, and then you go into no mind, which is God's mind, then you're in it and you are it. Almost you could say, like, I can't remember, I don't even know how many years. I pretty much saw The Matrix only once when it came out, but they talk about you are the spoon, bend the spoon, and it bends. You know, that's the type of stuff we're pretty much talking about. So it's like it's done. It's already done. Like I've done it. That's the attitude. But this is the human mind kicking in, checking is it done. The
Yeah.
fact that you have to check it, that it's done, you're not sitting in it's done. That's the mental gymnastics. And why is that? That's you know what I mean? This is where I'm intrigued by the mechanics of that. So,
Could you ask them to genetically alter us so we don't have such an inquisitive mind next time that we just the mind, just to
well,
just the mind?
I think they've done that in the past. The way it was put to me is because we're a conglomerate of so much, they didn't even know what was going to happen with the makeup of the way that we act with it. It's like this. There's nothing that loves as much as us in the universe, but there's also nothing that hates as much as us in the universe.
Wow.
And depending on where our focus is, that's where we need to be responsible for that, because that's where we can be productive or de-evolving. So it's like, that's the thing. Like I said, they don't have all the answers. And when they told me that, I was like, that's crazy. Like they had no idea. Because there are overseas, and this is more than this one star race, mating with another one, and then they're mating with another one, and they're on another planet, and they're evolving to that status. And this is such overlapping of genetics, but that's why our genetics will be found in anything as well. At least, a majority of it will be, it's we're all sort of copies of each other with just slight variations.
Literally copy and paste. Do you think it's just made me think of this, listening to you talking, the communication and the relationship that we all are forming a relationship with something at the same time. So these intergalactic, interdimensionals, and you have so many different names for the different types, but these relationships that many people are forming to co-create, because they don't have all the answers and we don't have all the answers, but maybe together we can create something magnificent for all of us.
Well, see, that's been done on different levels. And what it is now is creating heaven here. You're going to go to a utopia wherever you want because it's in alignment with your frequencies when we transition or really merge back with the highest expression, and our pinpoints of our oversoul can go out and go, it's very fractal. The way I describe this, I've just got to say this so people can understand. Imagine your oversoul, your God self, a basketball. That little tiny hole that you fill up with air, that's the pinpoint of that basketball's awareness in the physical vessel right now, experiencing this physical reality. All your past and future lives are all the other bumps in the basketball, and they're all being experienced from the same Godhead at the exact same time.
Right.
That state is all knowing and everything, but what it is, part of this experience is creating. It's like people saying, I'll be happy when I've got this job and I've got this girl and I've got this car and I've got this house. If you be happy already, your life's going to be heaven anyway. But because you're focusing on getting those things, then you get those things and your life's still shit. Understand what I'm saying? It's about creating that in the physical reality, but not only us. ETs are still trying to master that as well. So it's a very good question, because this is why I say to people, just because they're an ET in whatever dimension or density, I know for a fact, those that are in line with soul evolution and service to others, they're trying to ascend to the next bit. So if it's light, sound, or matter, any of those ways that beings or like basically exist, even a light being hasn't ascended yet. It's at a higher state of consciousness. Until you dissolve from all that back into pure consciousness, you're shapeless, you're unbounded, you're formless. That is where you've reached the highest expression of ascension. So even with light beings, it's, believe me, the love, the tear-soaked face, everything that I tell people when I experience this, it is blissful, but it's not the end all be all. It's a glimpse of a fractal or a facet of our nature. But it's to get that and to live in that state here, which is part of it, I think. Can't say 100%, but that's why I say it's about us now creating heaven on earth. Because we keep thinking we get the next thing, and what happens is the goalposts keep shifting. Oh, well, now when I do this, I'll be happy. Or now when I do this, it keeps shifting, and it's like, no, just be it. Be in the moment. You already are it. Feel the energy, just chill. Just chill. It's all good. But you've got to keep discipline. You've got to be devoted to this. And that's the thing, is that it's the D word, I say. It's discipline. Comes down to discipline. Because if you ain't got that, it's going to be like this. Up, down. You got to find, you got to ride that wave of the balance again. Because you can see, as this is good, this is bad, sources it all. Just find the equilibrium, find the 0 point. The 0 point.
Gift. You're just a gift. That's what you are.
We all are. We all are.
But you're a gift. Let me just tell you, you really are a gift, and you're a gift manifested in this fractal of reality to mirror to us a truth that's so essential and fundamental for our own development and overcoming that we're not enough and we need something outside of ourselves. I need a husband, or I need tea, or an awakening, or a kundalini. You're mirroring. You already are all that. It's already within you.
That's the thing, is that no one's immune to it. Sometimes we just need something pointed to us from an outside source. Now, like for example, so many times I'll say to people, if anything, I've given them validation for what they already know. My point is, now you've got to start trusting yourself. It's external validation, but this is the thing. Think about it like this. As a kid, your parents tell you something, your parents tell you something, your parents tell you something, goes in one ear out the other. You meet somebody that you've never met before. They tell you what your parents have been telling you, and you have an aha moment. But because it didn't come from your parents, now you get it. You had to hear it from somebody else.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? We're doing this as adults,
Yeah.
even in self-mastery. But sometimes you need that, not just from an external source, but from a different point of view. But are you okay with the ego getting hit when it needs to get hit? I'll always be the first to tell my friends and family, if I need to be pulled up, pull me up. Because I'm not seeing sometimes what's going on around me or externally. Just like I will pull them up. If you really love each other and you've got each other's, back, and only love is the main focus here, well, that still needs to get done. But that is a trick with this, is that sometimes you just need it from another perspective. You need it from an outside source. But it doesn't mean an external validation is always going to be the point for you. Like, that's the thing. Too many people are just relying on an external source, whether it's a spirit guide, whether it's a partner, or whatever it is for their happiness. That's where you just got to go, F it. And when you make a mistake, own it and go, well, that was an experience. The self-mastery is, am I going to repeat this crap again if I'm in a similar situation? And if, and this is where it gets really tricky. It's a catch-22, because it's like trying to achieve something and you keep trying to achieve it. Now, if you give up, you don't get it. But if you keep going, like, let's say, how many ways are there up a mountain? Well, you're going to go up that mountain, it's going to go up and it's going to go down a bit, it's going to go up, and there's going to be all these different paths that are up and down, then you finally get to the top. And then some smart ass gets in a helicopter and just flies straight to the top and just does it like that. There's many ways to that top of the mountain and many different paths on the same mountain.
Or then Peter gets in his Merkaba.
Oh, yeah. You are the mountain, and that is all of a sudden, the mountain opens up with eyes and a mouth, and I'm taking it to another level there, but the Merkaba is a good example of that. But that's the point, is that there are many ways up a mountain. And this is the way it's been explained to me, is that we're all source experiencing itself, and everyone's experience has to be tailored to them and slightly different, or else we wouldn't learn. And it's like, if we knew everything, how boring would it be? But in this, a source is also finding out its own capabilities. Like I was saying earlier, this is where it's like it implodes and explodes in this geometric toroidal, blink of the eye in God's mind, and does it all again. So, it's just wonderment to me. The stuff they've shown me, the places that I've been, the revelations, and then also the access to the book of the soul that I've got. I think when you're in that stillness and you've got revelations of things, you realize how much we don't know as well, which keeps it interesting.
The beautiful mystery, huh?
The mystery of all mysteries.
The unfoldment. I know it's the midnight hour where you are, but I just want to thank you so much for everything. And I think, when, just to wrap this up, there's just two things I want to say. The first thing is, there comes a point for me, and in my understanding, is it's not so much about having to know or say or be understood or be heard or be seen, or it's just allowing what is already so to show up without me getting in the way of making it happen. So I decided in 2024 to just let my eternal essence run the show, that I don't need to, in my business, let's say, post of me going, hey, would you like, or I've got this, or I can do this, or I'm a magician, or whatever, to not have to be heard and seen so much, to not have that drive to look, I can do this because I've got these skills and and it's all love based, but to actually just say, right, I've done the work. I put my work in last year. I know where I'm at. And now I'm going to just step back and allow my eternal essence to show up and deliver what's already been so. Because if I keep making it happen, I'm just getting in the way of what's already happened.
Knowing it's done again. See, this is the thing. That's not like if you take it from telekinesis and levitation, you've just done it with that.
Yeah, exactly.
That is when I say dig deep and doing the inner work. That's an example. Beautiful. It's not easy, but when you know, you know.
Easy. No, because like you said to me at the beginning, you said, I'm just at a point now where I've got my sanctuary and I'm just letting it happen, authentically happen and unfold. It's becoming human. I'm becoming human now. Okay? I've taken off my headset and I'm just like, right, I'm now just being human and seeing what that actually needs to express in this place without me having to even know.
And it's just getting started, this next chapter.
It's getting started.
And I'm unaware, just like when you do that, as you said, that's where the only way I could put it is that wondrous things happen when you get to that place. But the thing is, what's the lessons that took me so long to get to the place that we're speaking about now? What's the other things after it?
Mm.
So many times people will come to me and go, I know this, I know that. And it's like, well, for starters, why are you coming to me if you already know it?
Mm.
And then what happens shortly after? They have a revelation and everything gets blown out of the water and they go to a new state, a higher state. Once they got blown out of the water and realised, I got no idea what's going on.
Yeah, like stay there. Stay with not having a clue what's going on, because the minute we think we've got it, then it's almost like we put the plug in the sink. You block the flow. Stay in I haven't got a clue what's going on, but I'm on a ride.
And that's how you can tell the great spiritual teachers or great people at anything, whether it's business or music or whatever, they get to a place and they think they're not in an egotistical way like I've got it. They're like, oh, I've got a way that I do this and it's friggin' epic. They know there's more, they don't know what it is. And you see them in a year, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, and they've taken that now to another level. That's where you see the real people that are allowing it to just take its place, because they're not complacent. What they're doing is cool or great, but it's not there yet. And the thing is, I don't think you ever get there. I think we know it all. Like I said, on the unbounded aspect, we know it all. But to express that in physical form, it's just chapter after chapter after chapter. And you've got to be okay with that. That's not complacent, but okay with that. There's a big difference.
Just trust yourself. How I understand it is this. So how I speak to my mind, when my mind goes, but hold on, there's a way of doing this. And I'm like, no, there was a way of doing this. There's a new way of doing this. And it's called everything that's already happened in my life has happened. I just have to sit back, allow it to show up and engage with it in a new way. Engage with everything that presents itself in a brand new way. Like every moment is a gift. The way my cat looks at me, the way a client cries, let that tear just pause for just a moment. Let them sit in that sadness, because it's sitting in that sadness that will dissolve the trauma. Just don't have to just implement my tools. She doesn't need my tools. She needs my silence. The silence has all of I love talking to you, by the way. I love talking to you. Thank you so much for coming to.
No, you're so right in that, but because in that silence, I say to people, in that silence is where you're magical, is where your answers are, and where everything is. It's in that silence. The healing happens there. The insights, the revelations, it's all in that silence. It can seem new to some people, though I'm sure a lot in this community it's not. But for a lot of people that are new to this, sitting in that silence can be a challenge. but every single moment is a gift. Like you're saying, like the gift in, whether it's, it could be just doing the dishes, driving the car, just doing a hobby, whatever it is. There's beauty in it all. Too many people are rush, or they're in a lower vibratorial state and they're not happy and they're down. But if you can acknowledge and see that gift in every moment, Nirvana can be with you right now. It's nothing to be chased.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I've enjoyed this. It's been great doing this with you. So yeah.
What's the name of your new book? Tell me so we can keep an eye out. Do you know?
Yeah, here it is here. I'm just got to give it the go-ahead. It's called Ascending, UFOs, ETs, Angels, and God.
Love it. I love the way you got it all in the title.
It is. Well, this may be the last one. I'd say the last one of my experiences. It's the 12th or 13th book.
Wow.
I've got another one that's done now too that's very in-depth after this one. But I'll probably speak about it more. I think that's a good book that encapsulates everything, and there's so much that I've never spoken about. And it takes time to connect the dots on some of these complex things. But then, hey, I might even have different insight or more revelations another 10 years' time on a lot of them. Maybe I won't. I don't know. That's where you've just got to let source lead you where you've got to go. But I think it encapsulates where I am today and how I got here in a way unlike any previous work. So I hope it helps a lot of people. My editor, Jessica Bryant, who's done amazing work, she's edited all the books, said it's the best book, and those that have had a chance to go through it as well. And it's not it's the best book, but I think me maturing and then the writing maturing as well, because it's hard to get a lot of this. I've never considered myself an author, but it's probably the best yet in terms of what I've been able to produce. But yeah, I think speaking about it brings things across differently than it does when you're writing it. And each are just as powerful as the other. So that should be out shortly anyway.
Well, I look forward to reading. I'm going to read the book. I'm not going to. I'm going to not do audio. I'm just going to read your book, because I know also the reading. It just, when we read books, it just goes in on multi-dimensional levels. I think audiobooks are great, but when you read it, there's something about the written word. It just goes in on a much deeper level for me, anyway.
No, I agree with that. And I haven't done any audio books yet. I did have one up at the Shiji, I think, book 1 years ago, but I'm looking at getting all those professionally done. But I think you're right that the way you can take things in, and what I've noticed is there's ways that I express through writing and experience that I just can't verbally. Mm-hmm. It's not that I can't reread it and say it verbally, but the way I can express myself in the written word compared to the verbal is... it brings another perspective. So I think that's what a lot of text does, whether it's, certain channelings or religious books or just somebody's story. Like, certain spiritual books, sometimes you'll have to read them multiple times, and each time you're just getting something completely different, but you wouldn't get that if you didn't read it the previous time and get, the introductory understanding of something. And I think very much that's how everything can operate, is that there's multiple levels to the written word as well as the verbal.
Yeah. So I'm going to put the links to all your teachings and everything in the description so people can find you. And do you know, when I Googled you recently on YouTube, I just YouTubed you to see what you've been up to, as in interviews, to see, and when do you ever go to YouTube and everything's there and then you go a few months later and there's nothing there? It's like, it's just really how it blocks so much, really, Anyway, so you've got your website and everything is on your website, and I'm going to put the description to all your bits and bobs on the link.
Yeah. No, thank you. And it is weird. I haven't done I've done stuff on my YouTube channel, but podcasts I haven't done many over the last few years. But I I noticed myself just with certain platforms, yeah, they've still got problems, I think, from what happened few years ago now. Maybe the algorithms and proper searches will never be the same again. I've got no idea.
No. But once all your stuff is on your website, that's all that matters. So people
Yeah.
can read your books and watch you did the multi-dimensional film as well a few years back, which was beautiful.
And the new one's out, Ascension, the UFO and Paranormal Connection as well is out now. So
Yes.
people can, yeah, it goes for about an hour. It's shorter, but I don't know, half of the people say it's a lot better than multi-dimensional. I think they're just different.
I'm going to watch it today.
Yeah, go and check it out. Yeah.
Where can I find it? Is it on your website?
It's on the website. It's on iTunes and,
I'll go and I'll do my own homework. I want to take up any more of your time. Peter, thank you for everything.
It's my pleasure.
I'm sure I'll see you another time in another place.
Yes. No, all good, all good. And keep doing what you're doing, whether it's this or with the other work that you're doing, helping people share your light.
Blessings to you.
Blessings.
Take care. Thank you, Peter.